All right, we should be live. Well, I mean, on Twitch. We'll wait for
Yeah.
Dino. Okay, so do you have any questions, or was there anything else you kind of wanted to specifically have brought up? And again, if you have stuff ideas as we go, just bring them up. I'm just asking you now in case there's anything you want me to specifically address.
Um,
Totally
Nothing that
fine
I
if the
can
answer's
super think
no.
of
Most people say no,
actually.
so
No, just the thing that I had mentioned to you earlier, like going into, you know, talking
oh
Internet.
shoot,
to
hang on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of Roll Call. And I have the lovely Rachel here with me to discuss her character Basil from the Tales of Evrand. So, Basil, we have a
Yes.
tradition here on Roll Call where we open up with the most important question. How are you doing today?
Okay. I am dandy. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Dandy's nice. I haven't been dandy in a
I
while. But yeah,
I
just
mean, it's a nice word. I want to be dandy, so
you
if
want
I
to be
say it
dandy.
enough, maybe I will.
There we
Yes.
go. All right, I like that attitude. All right, we've been planning this for a while, but schedules have just kind of not been able to work out, and this worked out just because we had to cancel Isles this Saturday. I know that Nick is gone,
Mhm.
so we decided to take
Yeah.
advantage and have an in-look depth at a character that hasn't been really featured on Roll Call. She's been discussed obviously with like the
Yeah.
Evrand retrospective and stuff, but we wanted to give a really deep
Right.
dive down
For
into
sure.
Basil. So,
Mhm.
opening question, pretty basic one, but what would you say has changed the most about Basil from when we first saw her in the campaign? Not like
Mhm.
pre-campaign and all the stuff that happened to her, but point 0.5 episode 1 to last week. What's the biggest thing about Basil that has changed and why?
I would yeah, I would, and I might sound like a broken record this whole, session
Same
video thing thing of roll call,
episode.
is definitely when she episode,
There you go.
that is the word I was thinking about. The whole episode of I'm just gonna shut up. That's gonna be the whole episode.
All
We're just
right, well,
gonna
I
sit
guess
and
we're done
stare at each
here.
other.
So, good time.
um, no, I'm gonna sound like a broken record because I would say the answer is her finding out that her mom is the Raven Queen. It's a very pivotal moment, I think, for her. Kind of feels like she has so much more to offer in life than she had originally thought. And so that was a very big catalyst to her trying to figure out who she is and still trying to do that. So,
Okay. We might be retreading some old ground because there was a portion of Evrand where I had to leave the campaign just due to some work and some personal stuff.
mhm.
And so I know that a lot
Right.
of the stuff that went on with Basil's family, I wasn't there for, and I did catch up on the episodes. But you always
Mhm.
just you remember stuff better when you're there and you're live.
Right.
So
Yeah,
curiosity
for sure.
question. Oh, did Dino just go live? Thanks, Dino. Appreciate that.
No.
Love that. Um, but so I got thrown off. But so I'm curious because I
Mhm.
remember when it came down to us talking about killing Basil's dad.
Yeah.
Basil talked to Vasadi about like, oh, what about mom? Like, do we get her out of there? And there was this kind of reveal of like, I
Mm.
think she knows. I don't really know how involved she's in, but she's
Right.
aware. She's not just like this fool kind of there. So I guess just like I know her relationship with her dad, and her dad was a very bad relationship. I know her relationship with her sister
Yes,
was
it
rough.
was.
I don't really remember what her relationship with her mom was like, but Basil obviously cared enough that she wanted her safe regardless of what her kind of connection with her father was. So I
Yeah.
guess what was that relationship like? And then learning that the Raven Queen is kind of more your spiritual mother, like obviously her birth mother is still of this plane, so she kind of has two
Mm.
moms. So how does that relationship kind of work with that revelation?
Yeah. Yeah, her mom was definitely very kind of emotionally absent. I would say she didn't really have a lot of deep interest when it came to Basil and Basadi. So knowing that Basil was back in town, that um, Rolim, her dad, was aware of that this whole entire time. Just seeing that Basil's mom hadn't tried to come see her in prison, hadn't tried to speak with her or even tell, Vasadi, hey, try to get this message to Basil. It really shows you how lackluster of a mother she was. Um, Definitely her marriage to Basil's dad was, I think, more out of convenience and social status. And so, definitely, when she had kids, it was, well, we need heirs. We need, you know, children who can take care of us and carry on this family name and lineage. But that's pretty much where it, you know, ended. And then how Roland was when it came to anything that had to do with Vasadi and Basil, how he was very neglectful towards them, didn't super care. And um, I'd say that she was, dare it, like equally horrible, just like Roland, but because she knew that all of this stuff was going on and then didn't bother to step in.
Do you think that, because I mean, Basil has shown a very like genuine fondness and love for the Raven Queen,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna push back a little bit here. I mean, obviously that's a new revelation. Like Basil has been following the Raven Queen for
Mhm.
some time, but it's not like they went out and had lunch
Yeah.
together and they talked about crushes and they were together for all these life experiences.
Yeah.
And so, I guess my question for that, sorry, one second. Oh, no.
Oh no.
No, we're good. I guess my question for that is like, do you think like her closeness with the Raven Queen, do you think a big part of that comes from the fact that like it's kind of the best she's had up to this point? And I'm not questioning the Raven Queen's motives here or saying that like she's bad or
Right.
nefarious, but like
Yeah.
it feels like Basil's just trying to hold on to something for someone that that does genuinely care about her. And like, do you think that that
Right.
had any sort of impact on that relationship?
Oh, 100%. And um, Basil's big mommy and daddy issues. She, has the trifecta. Um, and I think because of that relationship that she had with her parents and figuring out that her mom was the Raven Queen and the fact that it's like, oh, my mom's a god. She has a lot of stuff that's going on, but she's still taking the time to talk to me, to try to come visit me, have these as normal experiences and conversations with Basil, such as crushes and what to do next. And I definitely think that Basil jumped very deep into that because she so desperately wanted that kind of motherly affection. And so, you know, I think it kind of going back and forth between each other because she had that rough relationship with her now like current mortal mother. That's why she's grasping so tightly to the Raven Queen. But then I think that's also why she showed her mother mercy and like didn't try to go after her or affect her in any way, is because she's like, I have this god. She's better than you. You're not even worth my time, you know? So I think definitely a lot of the heaviness of Basil's now relationship with her family, um, all of that has to do with her relationship with the Raven Queen.
Is Vasadi the only member of the direct? I mean, obviously, father's dead, but like, do you see her having any
Yeah.
relationship with her birth mother at all moving forward, or do you think it's only Vasadi and that ties have pretty much been cut, even though it hasn't been like directly said?
No, I think she's only going to have a relationship with Vasadi. Basil thinks that her mortal mother is kind of a lost cause, and honestly, she's just not interested in it. Even if the opportunity were to present itself, she would be like, "No, I think I only have one ability, or I only have the ability to forgive one person, and I've already done that. So bye."
And I mean, there's forgiveness, and then there's acceptance, which I mean, you can forgive
Yeah.
someone without being like, and now you're going to become what you were and be a part of my life again. You can forgive someone
Yes.
and move on. And sometimes that's the right thing to
Yep.
do. I'd say frequently that's the right thing to do sometimes.
Right. It's like you don't have to forget, but you can help yourself get over it.
Yeah. I mean, just, I can't remember who it was. I think was it Mark Twain? There was a really famous writer who had a quote that I've always loved, but it's like, Anger's an acid that does more to the vessel that carries it than to anyone you throw it on. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
Basil letting her mom live, but basically just kind of cutting that ties or those bonds with hers is probably the best way that she could have let that anger go, or
Right.
whatever she was
Yeah, for
feeling.
sure.
Anger might not be the right word, but whatever those negative feelings
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. I think there was just a lot of negativity surrounding that.
All right, we're kind of going to go into some more just like fun kind of trivia questions because I'm always curious about this kind
Okay.
of stuff. So, what is
Yeah.
Basil's favorite food? It's her birthday. She gets to have whatever she wants. Like, what's her go-to meal?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I would say I've never thought about this. She's definitely a fruity kind of girl.
Haha,
She's fruity.
haha.
She's she loves you know, any kind of berries. So she'd probably enjoy, apple pies and any kind of desserts that involve like strawberries or raspberries. But something that I think she would like because I like it and I know I can make it and it's a lavender lemonade. So
Okay.
she would probably um constantly have some lavender lemonade in her, I don't know, ice box.
See, I see her being a parfait kind of girl. I don't know why. That
She
just
could
seems
like
like
a good
I
parfait.
could see her being a parfait gal. It's funny
I
because
can agree.
you said fruit, and I don't know why. I guess I just immediately went to vegetables because I just think of Basil's garden, how this whole thing started.
Garden.
Yeah, so to me, I'm
She's
like
a healthy
beans.
girl.
Yeah, sure. Ah,
Yeah, I mean, as Rachel, I hate beans. I think all beans are
what?
horrible.
What? All of
I
them?
know.
Even like
I'm
black, pinto, green,
every,
all of them?
all
Lima?
beans.
Wow.
I hate all beans. Um,
Even black-eyed
so
peas?
I like the bands,
All
but
right,
that's as
well,
far as beans that I
not
um
a legume fan. Got it.
but oh, Felicity said coffee beans. Okay,
Oh,
I will say
there we go.
coffee
Okay.
beans. There we go. There
Yeah,
we go.
I could see that.
Um no, I mean she's not like Yursa. She's not a vegetarian or anything, but I think typically she would lean I think Basil's a soup girl. She seems like a soup girl, an iced coffee kind of girl. Um So definitely a variety of food. She's kind of like me and willing to try and eat anything. Um, so I guess if we're going by just normal world standards, she'd be like, let's go out for some sushi or some boba, some poke bowls.
Nice.
But I don't think they have those in our world. So I would say some nice soup,
They probably have
some
sushi in
lavender
Evrand.
lemonade.
I bet they have sushi in Evrand.
Probably not.
Boba, probably not. You're probably
Depending
right
on where
about
you
that.
go. Boba. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. John said they probably have those in space. Bet.
Oh, sick. All
You
right.
said it. So now you have to do it, John.
Boba would be that weird astral
Okay.
sea drink, though, that we find and we're like, what the hell is this? And Basil buys like 20 before we leave. Just
It's
a.
canon. I'm going to do it.
All right,
John.
well, you heard it here first, folks. Oh, alrighty. Um, again, going back to some basic questions here. What has been your personal favorite arc in this campaign and favorite moment from that arc and why, obviously?
Any kind of arc or specifically for Basil?
I'm going to say any arc.
Any arc?
Yeah, you do what you want.
Yeah. I am. Ooh. I'd say I'm in love with Yursa's arc when it comes to Oberyn. Um, I think it was just beautifully done on Kayla's part. I think she's such a great actress. She's just amazing when it comes to showing these raw emotions and seeing how desperately Yursa tried to essentially save Oberyn. Um, and just Oberyn being a great villain as well, one of those sympathetic villains that you want them to be good. You don't want them to be someone that you have to fight. So even though he wasn't redeemable, we couldn't save him. I think it was such a big and important growing point for Yrsa because she had kind of a almost a positive only outlook on the world, which is something to admire but also be cautious of. And I think seeing her go through all of those emotions and then just having us beat Oberyn in general, I think that was such a wonderful and important arc for a lot of people. So I would say that makes my number one.
I mean, great answer, and I think that the tragedy of that, I mean, along with just what happened with Oberyn in general, and the fact that like it was, and not in like a way that like disrespects your sub, too little, too late, because the guy had just been alive for so long and was so full of hate that like
Right.
there was
Yeah.
something there, but he just couldn't hold on to it because there wasn't enough to grasp
Mm-mm.
onto. But like
Right.
I thought it was so fitting that with this attempt to try and save Oberyn, and I mean I can say this because I'm the one who kind of paid for it, but it was a different member of the party who kind of had to pay the price for that, like I
Right.
and I felt
Mhm.
like that was such a shattering for Ursa that like someone else kind of
Mhm.
ended up losing or dying because of this. And I think seeing
Yeah.
the journey that she's gone on, I'm very curious about the next time that we're kind of facing someone who's a bit more morally gray. What's Ursa's approach gonna
Yeah.
be? Because I mean, with
Right.
Ishna, nah, everyone's on the fuck Ishna bandwagon. We need to kill that bitch. Like no one has
Right.
a nice thing to say about her. But I'm certain that John's going to introduce someone who, at the very least, is going to be in that morally gray area, and I'm very curious how
Mhm.
Yrsa and Kayla will approach that after what happened with Oberyn.
Right. Well, that and also Gideon, because Gideon can't really have that doesn't really have that memory of what had happened after he, became confetti.
True.
And
Confetti.
I would be really interested. I'd be really interested in seeing how he would deal with that and knowing what the party has told him and what happened. And then Basil literally being like, "Here are your ashes.
That was a
Maybe
weird
next
gif.
time don't do that again." It was. um, I'm really interested to see how he's going to approach it. Um, Hopefully not die again. That
We'll
would be
see.
nice.
I had a whole backup character plan for that because I was like 98% certain that I wasn't going to bring Gideon back after he died.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so
No,
glad you did.
for sure, it was the right move. But yeah, it. Yeah, I was borderline very close to being like, nah, he's gone. Like we need to feel that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also glad we didn't make that decision, but I mean, it
Mhm.
was very. You can ask John. It was very close. Like I was like, yeah, I don't think he's gonna come back. But
Ugh,
yeah, if you had to
good thing you
pick,
did.
going back to kind of what you said, I know that's been your favorite arc slash moment in general, but what would your favorite arc for Basil be?
Favorite arc for Basil. Um Definitely when she killed her father, um, and then got to have that relationship with Vasadi again. But a big part of that arc was when Rianne essentially adopted Basil. Um, and I think one thing that Rianne definitely brings to the table, and Joe's so amazing when he plays Rianne.
I mean,
Joe's just a
period, but
great
also when he plays
actor in
Rianne.
general, like period. When he's like in Joe in general, um, one of my favorite people. Um,
Yeah, he's all right.
how he treats Basil, how he treats Basil, just with this, you know, kindness and um gentleness because he even though Basil's so much older than him, he still has a very different life experience than her. And um, you know, him giving Basil that opportunity to realize, like, hey, you have a family. It's your chosen family. You know, you may not have your mom, you may not have your dad, but you have this god mom who's here for you and actively choosing you. You have me. I'm not your actual father, but I'm this father like figure, and I'm choosing you. You can have my last name. It is there for you if or when you want it. And I think the fact that he was so honest about that, and he even gave her the option. It wasn't like a, well, you should do this. You should, it was very much, you've had so many responsibilities in your life, and your family has always told you what to do. You felt like you never really had any options or the ability to say no. And I think the fact that he gave her that option to say yes or be like, no, I'm good. She was like, I feel like this is what a real father is supposed to be like, there to support you, there to provide advice, but also knowing when to let your child go and make their own choices. So, having her take Rian's last name, even though she was actively trying to find her mother's last name, um, that's a very big and heavy moment for that arc specifically.
Okay. Since I was gonna hold off on this for a little bit, but since I feel like this kind of segues perfectly into it, I
Hmm.
want to talk about Basil's relationship with every member of the party. So specifically, like, how would you define their relationship, and do you have a favorite moment between those two characters? I know you just talked
I'm
about
sorry, could
Rian.
you repeat that
Oh,
question?
sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, like, with each member of the party, how would you
Mhm.
describe Basil's relationship with them? And what would be your favorite moment between like you and Gak, you and Yursa, you and Rian, etc.? And so,
Mhm.
since you were just talking about Rian, as much as I'm pretty certain I know what the answer is going to be, how about you just elaborate on
Right.
that, or at least confirm my suspicions?
Yeah. I would definitely say that was one of my favorite moments. But honestly, what could possibly top that moment is when he and Basil had that moment when they were up on that watch together and they were talking, what was it, like boulders or something? And they're like, well, what if this boulder doesn't want to move?
Oh, that.
But yeah, like having this whole deep conversation, and they're both talking about the person that they love, and not saying the names, but they're both like, yeah, I there's this boulder that I want to move. I like them, but what if this boulder just wants to stay in its spot? And that was such a great moment between them. So I think those two moments definitely rival each other.
All right. Let's move to everyone's favorite Goliath, Gak.
Yeah. Um, Gak is, I would say, he's Basil's best friend. They have such an interesting and unique relationship. It's not necessarily very like brother and sister, you know? But I think that they are like the kind of best friends where they want to be together constantly, but they could go months without seeing each other. And then as soon as they get back together, it's like no time has passed. Um, he helps bring out so much in her. He has this innocence in this world that she just loves to see because he has this natural want to learn things. And I know that there's like this kind of running bit where people are, Gak's not very smart, but Basil will constantly defend that and say he's so smart because he went out into this world with not a lot of knowledge. He's constantly having new things being thrown at him, and he's taking it in such stride. And he's not afraid to ask questions or be silly or whatnot. And so seeing that, you know, Basil can sit back and think, I don't have to know everything. You know, Gak relies on the group to help him understand certain things. And so that helps Basil, like, if I don't know the answer to something, There's Gideon, there's Rhiannon, Yrsa, Enid, even Gak, and so having that innocence and just trying to navigate the world, I think, is something that she's trying to do as well. Um, yeah.
I think there's that whole idea of like it's the smartest people who know how much they don't know. And I think that
Mhm.
Gak embodies that very well to where he knows that
Yeah.
there's all these things that have kind of helped him kind of get a boost on things, but
Mhm.
Gideon, like he and Gideon have had this conversation where,
Right.
Gak is now able to perform magic like without the book. Like Gideon ran that experiment where he took the
Mhm.
book, gave him the ring, and Gak is still able to cast spells. So he's like, okay, well maybe this is
Right.
training wheels for you, but this book didn't just say cast sixth level magic because like that's
Right.
way far beyond what
A lot. Yeah,
98% of the
exactly.
world is capable of doing, and probably more like 99.8 to be honest. But yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that there is something really beautiful about just like seeing this world from this different perspective and being able to approach it differently
Mhm.
that I think inspires Gideon and I mean the whole party, but specifically Gideon Basil since we can address that. But
Yeah,
yeah, so
for
I
sure.
absolutely get what you mean by that. All right,
Mhm.
Yarsa.
Yersa. Um, Yersa's just the sweetest bean. I think something that Yrsa brings to the table that Basil so desperately wants is to go into everything trying to not automatically think of the worst, and I think that's how I am as a person. And I definitely have brought that into Basil's character. I unfortunately always assume the worst just in any situation. I expect it to fail. I expect things to go wrong. Um, and it's one of those things where I'm like, well, if I expect nothing to work, if I go in and I assume that it's going to end badly, if it does, I've already been prepared and it doesn't feel like it hurts as much. But if I go into it super positive, then if it doesn't happen, it just makes me feel horrible. But, it's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to think that way. I want to go into something excited. And it's okay to feel that sadness if it doesn't happen. And that's very much how Basil is too. And I think having Yrsa, meeting someone, she's like, oh, they're, blah, blah, blah. They might be really nice. They might just need help. And, Basil's like, girlfriend,
We're gonna
he
kill these
wants to steal
people.
your money. Yeah, even then, Basil would love to have a more positive outlook on life. And definitely being around Tirsa, she started to grow that, but still a long way. And I would say that having Yrsa be there as this constant form of sunlight is going to help, make progress.
I had at my last job I had an old boss that I really liked and I really respected him, and I remember he told me something that always stuck with me, and I'm probably gonna misquote exactly what he said, but more along the lines he basically said like people, how'd he say it? It was like people won't let you down if you don't give them the opportunity, but they also won't impress or surprise you if you don't give them the opportunity.
Mhm.
And that always stuck with me of just like if I'm always just assuming the worst of customers or like new coworkers, then like
Mhm.
anything they do I'll see as like the exception, but then when they screw up I'll just be like, ah, yep, knew it, couldn't count on them,
I
yeah,
knew it.
knew you were gonna come in and ruin my day.
Yep.
And I think that there's a lot kind of going there to where like Yursa now has been disappointed by someone that she gave a
Mhm.
chance to, but at the same
Right.
time those times that she does give people chances and those times that it does work out, I
Mhm.
mean Vasati, I mean Rianne's sister, I mean I don't know about you guys, I was super super sus on Rianne's sister for a little bit. I was
I
like, I
was
don't really
too.
know about this, and that worked out very
Yeah,
nicely.
for
So
sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just interesting how those kind of dynamics come into play. Fiction
Mm-hmm.
reflects reality and
Yeah,
all that.
absolutely.
All right, Enid.
Enid, the love of Basil's life. Um, Definitely at first Basil wasn't super sure what to think about Enid. Um, and I think right now it's still kind of this lighthearted infatuation, but it's gotten to this point where they've, she's had flings in the past, but she's gone in knowing like, oh, I'm just making my way through this town. I'm only going to be here for a few weeks, and knowing that she's going to eventually leave, she doesn't go in with any expectations really. So when Enid showed up, um, and eventually decided to stay, Basil has kind of had to face her fears essentially because she's never stayed with anyone so long. And she's never had to show these burdens. And she feels like, well, if I end up with somebody, they're going to see these things. They're going to feel like they have to help these burdens and all of this weight on my shoulder. And definitely getting a closer relationship with Enid and how easy and essentially fast it was for Basil to tell Enid about her mom, um, how her life with her dad was, and all of that. I think it's definitely shown her that it's okay to have these kind of relationships that, and it's still really early, but it's that whole idea where, if someone truly cares about you, even if you think like you're too much to handle, that your burden should only be yours and no one else needs to carry it, someone might have such a lighter load and they may have extra space. And if they didn't care about you, if they didn't want to help you with everything that you're going through, they wouldn't. And Basil is starting to really understand that people will do what they want. And it's just like the whole thing with Oberyn. She was like, don't come. This is dangerous. I don't want anything to happen to you. This is my business, my thing I need to get over. And everybody was like, no, F you, Basil. We're going to do what we want because we care about you and we love you. And that's how she's feeling with Enid.
You mean her dad?
Or, yeah, her dad.
Oh,
Her
I was
dad.
I was
Yeah.
like, what?
I'm
Okay,
so
I'm getting
sorry.
that. No, you're
Yeah,
good. I
her
was just
dad.
really confused for like 5 seconds.
No, you're fine. Yes, her dad. Um, So, she's starting to feel more comfortable with this person. And it's scary, but it's exciting. Um, so she feels like she can have this deep intimacy with someone and not have to worry about feeling like she's unlovable, you know?
So I mean, again, I have been accused of being dense many times in my life. So just say it how it is. I mean, are Enid and Basil in a relationship, or are they just having fun and moving in that direction right now?
They're just having fun and moving in that direction. I think it's still like a puppy love kind of thing where they're both kind of side eyeing each other, like, hey, you're cute. I like hanging out with you. Um, but they're both like, so do you want to make the first move? Do you want to make the first move? So I don't know if I would say they're anywhere near hopping into a relationship yet, but they're definitely like when Gak was like, "Hey, Enid, it's really weird. Like, Basil's looking at you a lot, you know." So I think it's getting to a point where it's becoming more obvious to the other party members. So, maybe within the next few sessions, it could lead to them at least being like, "Hey, um, this may come as a surprise, but I like you. I like you." So, not in a relationship yet.
For the record, Gideon has no idea. Just throwing that
That's
out there.
okay. That might just be a conversation, She's like, yeah, I think I like Enid. Can you
Yeah,
be
we
like,
all like Enid. She's
oh,
nice. She's very talented and
That
efficient at
would
what she
be
does.
it's like, "No, Gideon." It's like, you know how sometimes you like someone?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's not that
Oh.
dense.
Right. Yeah.
I am curious though, because
Mm.
Basil has opened up to this with Gideon in the past, where she's talked about how like if she found the answer to go to, I don't remember if it's the Shadowfell or whatever plane her mother is on, she
Mhm.
might take that opportunity. So I'm curious if she'd be more hesitant to start a relationship with someone like Enid, who she's very close to, while still searching for that, because it almost feels like those would be two very conflicting ideas to go
Mm.
for at the same time. Because then it's like,
Yes.
what if you
And
do find the answer then?
right. Um and definitely it depends on when or if that happens. I think as of right now, if it were to happen,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a lot easier to make that decision because they have only reached so far in a possible relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's they haven't made a lot of progress or anything. So it would definitely be an easier decision with where they're at now. Now, sessions in and Basil still hasn't figured out anything and now they're like in this deep love for one another, it would definitely make the decision a lot harder and would open up a whole new can of worms, possible arguments and heartbreak, and you never know what could happen. So I'm just as interested to see how that would turn out.
I mean, I'm very curious as to how Enid would respond to that, and I mean, neither of us can really comment
Yeah,
on that. Only Felicity could, but I mean, I'm
right,
curious because I could see it going both ways. Is Enid the type who would hold on very tightly to what little she has? Because I mean, we've seen how quickly
right.
she's grown. I mean, I knew she kind of grew up with him, but like she's very much gotten very close to Rianne ever since
Mhm.
she realized, okay, so what happened wasn't your fault. Like their relationship has been like skyrocketing in terms of like getting very
For
close and holding
sure.
each other very dear. But also,
Yes.
is Enid also the type of person who believes if you love someone, you let them go,
Mhm.
and then I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah.
If it all plays out, who knows?
If at all, yeah. And I mean, Enid, seeing how close she's gotten to Gak, and slowly getting close to Basil, I think that she can also be equally very internal with the things that she's feeling. So I think if that were to happen with where they're at now, I think that it would really suck, but it would be something where she might just hold it in. But if we get closer, it could be so much worse. So,
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
like, she has to cut her hair and eat ice cream that level, maybe. Like, get bangs or something,
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
you know?
What's Basil's favorite type of ice cream? Super off topic, but since you brought it up,
Favorite type of ice cream? Strawberry ice cream.
just strawberry. All right,
That's
fair enough.
Rachel's favorite ice cream.
Is it
I like
really?
it with strawberry chunks. Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice. Ah, all right, and last but not least, but Gideon.
Gideon. I would say Basil feels more of a brotherly, sisterly, newfound kind of relationship between them. And I think a lot of that is because they're in kind of similar relationships, things that have to do with their family, not necessarily sure where to start. Um, and have like demons from the past that are affecting you. With Basil, it was her dad. With um Gideon, it's Ishna. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and so I think she has this newfound, really deep connection to Gideon. And that's why she's so adamant of like, you're diving in, I'm diving in. We're in this together. I'm going to help you as much because I care about you. You were there for me when I needed you. You're still here to listen when I need to talk through something. I want to be that foundation for you as well. So, having Gideon be one of the people who is so immediately willing to jump and help you, not even just like, "Hey, I upgraded your armor to help protect you during battles." The fact that she came to him and she's like, "I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do next for my mom." And Gideon's like, "Well, I'll help you. Like, I'll try to do some research. I'll, X, Y, and Z," without even thinking about it because he has his own stuff that he's dealing with, very personal things that he wants to figure out. But the fact that he was so quick to be like, I care about you enough to help you figure this out as well. Um, and she definitely admires that. And so I think that's why she's grown so close to him and why I think that they kind of have this brotherly sisterly bond. And I think that that's definitely really shown, especially that I think last in-depth conversation that they had when Gideon just like reached out and hugged her and they just sat there hugging for, I don't know
Who
how
knows?
long. And then they can sit and, hold hands to show each other that, I'm here for you, patting each other's backs. Um and it's just turned into such a beautiful relationship between them. I don't know if Gideon feels the same way.
I mean, he definitely does. I think it's been. I mean, Gideon's had a rough time recently. I mean, everything with Ishna dying, his door exploding for no reason. I mean, he's had a rough go at it. But
Yeah, yeah.
and I think also they've talked about it a little bit, but it's something that I feel like until he talks to at least a few more people in the party, he can't really get over. Because I mean, he has. I can't really call it survivor's guilt, but he died. But like he
Yeah.
still feels really bad that like the party had access to like this super powerful thing and they used it to bring him back instead of getting something else that they
Mhm.
certainly would have wanted because he talked about it, like
Yeah.
Ursa could have made sure her home was safe, like Rian could have either brought his people back or brought back his family or at least one of them,
Mhm.
and said like that level of magic that is like legend. Like I mean, because like we're already doing magic that's like incredibly impressive, but like level 9 spells,
Right.
like 0.0 something% of people have
Right.
probably ever cast
Exactly.
that. And so to
Mhm.
have something like that used on Gideon, he's trying to kind of justify the fact that he's still alive, which is really
Yeah.
hard for him, you know, because
Yeah.
and so now it sucks more because now that he's dealing with this very personal conflict, Gideon in his mind, he's like, no one else can really suffer for this because of me because everyone's already done a lot for me and given enough for me.
Yeah.
And so like he really appreciates like because he knows Basil absolutely means it when it's like, hey, like I'm jumping in. But like in Gideon's mind,
Mhm.
he's like, no one else in the party can die for this because like it
Yeah.
would just be wrong. It would not be fair that like me getting brought back causes someone else to pass away.
Mhm.
And so I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for Gideon who has basically gone from having no one in his life, like not really, to having the party that he cares about very deeply, and now he's kind of fighting for this family that he's like he had, but he never really knew
Mhm.
them.
New. Yeah.
And it's hard because like he can't get that back.
Right.
And I think it's why it's so important to him to help Basil because he's like, you still have a chance to be with your family. Like that's kind of why he went to her
Right.
and he was like, you can't give up. Like it's too
Right.
late for me. You don't want it to be too late for you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
So I think that's the really fun part of their dynamic is that like their
Mhm.
family aspects are both very complicated, which they both understand, but they both
Right.
have different struggles, which
Mhm.
they just view it differently. And I think it works very well for their friendship dynamic.
Right.
And I'm
Well,
very
and, like,
excited to see where it
they're
goes.
kinda they're kinda chaotic together too, a little bit. I haven't noticed, like versus, like, Rand, Yrsa, etcetera, like, back when the mansion was on fire, like, everybody
Yeah.
left, and then Basil was like, "But what if I run into the building even more to go find Ulfric?" And then Gideon was like, Okay, and he just ran after her, screaming her name down the hallway. He willingly let her throw him out the window. Like, I
Yep.
think that is such a funny little subset of their relationship, and I would love to have more moments like that between them.
I feel like Basil's the person who's like having a plan's great, but it's always going to go wrong, and I'm the improviser. Like that's just who Basil is,
Yes.
and Gideon's just like, "You're right. Plan has gone to shit. You're in
Right.
charge now."
Right. It's like, here's what you make the plan, and if it fails, I'll like pick it back up to where we're at. That's
Nah, man. Yeah, Gideon had a rough day then too.
yeah,
Oh, oh, funny.
it's
That
fair.
was a great episode. Huh.
It was such a great episode.
All right. So Rachel, I have some
Yes.
questions slash comments from some of your fellow players.
Okay.
So this is going to be a big part of like the next session. Let's open up with John. Give
John.
me 1 second to scroll to that. Sorry.
You good?
John and I talk a lot.
That's okay.
um. Okay. And some of this might retread some old ground, but I just want to make sure they all get read, and then you can either
Yeah.
add context or just restate.
Mhm.
All right.
For sure.
Whenever anyone joins a new campaign with a new character, there's always that time period where you're getting to know your own character and not fully
Mhm.
and you're not fully comfortable with playing as them. But eventually, either enough sessions go by or something happens in the game that puts you fully into the campaign and character. What point in the campaign do you think that finally clicked for you and Basil?
Um, damn. I would say so a big thing about Basil, all of the characters that I've ever played for any campaign, I base them all solely on myself, but each character is different. So my last character, Kiva, she was like everything that I wanted to be, but wasn't. It's like she was super outgoing, super bubbly, like happy go lucky, ready to run it. And I had played her because I was like, this is things that I want. Um, and so it's nice to play that kind of character that's outside of your comfort zone, um, and putting those parts of you within that character. For Basil, I wanted her focus to be the more nitty gritty version of myself. Um, the kind of version where, I'm not a half glass full or half glass empty. I'm like, it could go either way, depending on the person that you're with. Are they going to take your cup and drink all of it, or are they going to add to it? So I'm definitely that kind of person. I'd like to be an idealist, but I have such a realistic viewpoint of the world. And so I wanted Basil to have like the deep anxiety, the really shitty past that has created her to where she is. Like, you know, I wanted to have this deep set and problematic relationship with her family because I do. And having that in there and then having her ultimately like defeat it to get over it, that helps me as a player. Even though I can't necessarily do that in real life, it's very um satisfying, I guess you could say, or comforting to at least have your character get over that kind of hurdle. So Basil's definitely, I don't want to say all the things that are wrong with me, but things that I genuinely want to work on. So my deep fears, my problem with burdens and not wanting other people to know my business, just like Basil is, but knowing that you have these close people in your life that love you and they want to genuinely help you, and having a character like that and getting that is kind of like what the chat is saying, very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So it's fun playing this kind of darker, more steel set character because she's everything that I am, all of the negatives, the things that I want to work on. And I think she's the most satisfying character I've ever played because she's continuing to grow. She's continuing to try to find that relationship with her mom that she's always wanted but's never been able to get. Um, you know, and I think that just as the campaign goes on, it's only going to get more and more like kind of like closure, you know. You're able to do all of the things that you want to do, be the person that you want to be. And even though I'm not always able to do this in real life, I can at least give that to my character. And it's like giving that to a part of myself. So I think when it first hit me is I think we were in Woebrook. Um, and so it was like a good few sessions in when we were playing. And the very um, end, you know, she started feeling like she was useful to the party. She's like, oh, I have stuff like I can bring to the table, you know? And then they left and they were on their journey to go see Lady Gemcloak. And she did kind of air out some of her dirty laundry and you know people are like it is what it is, you know, we still love you, we still want to be here for you. So that's when it really hit me and I was like, I need to drive this home, I need to see it to the end. And so um it's just been like up from there.
I mean, I think a lot of D&D characters, but we'll just stick with Basil for right now. But I think Basil is a very good storytelling tool for a reminder that like healing is a process, it's not a destination.
Mhm.
And that like
Right.
wounds heal and scars fade. It doesn't mean they didn't happen, but
Yeah.
you know, they're a part of you, but they're not as prevalent or they're not as noticeable or they're not as damaging as they were
Right.
before. So yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like for Basil's character arc that has been wildly successful for what that's worth.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. Let me see. John had a few more questions.
Okay.
At the end of the campaign, when all the rifts are closed and the multiverse is saved, what do you think Basil wants to do and where would she want to go?
There's a couple different answers to this. And it's going to make for a very interesting decision at the end, depending on how the rest of the campaign goes. She would love to ultimately get to stay with her mom for the rest of her life, um, be able to go live with her wherever she lives up in the sky. Um, but she does have this newfound relationship with all of these people and they're also her family. And if she gets closer to Enid, she's like, that's my girl. Am I just gonna leave her? You know? So it's gonna make for a very interesting ending. Um, so I would say it could either go one of those two ways. And I don't have the answer right now. We'll just have to see as the campaign goes.
Fair enough. All right, last few from John. Favorite NPCs and favorite locations.
Ooh, favorite NPC, I would say I love Dio. I I know that we always joke about Alan and I love Alan, but Dio has been so much fun because he genuinely cares about Gak, you know, and even though he seems like kind of sleazy, he still is so willing to help us. And I love that he's such a reoccurring character. And so that's helped me continue to love him. Favorite location, I would say um see I'd like to say Shridina, Shridina, um, but I feel like we haven't had enough time to really be there,
Mm-hmm.
compared to like Aelden and Wilbrook. But I would say, due to the length that we were in Aelden and everything that was happening, I would say that may be my favorite place so far. But I have a feeling I'm really gonna enjoy Siri.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally valid. Question from Felicity: If
Felicity,
if
my true love.
if Basil had to choose between being with her mom tomorrow or helping the party save the world, which would she choose?
That's so hard. Um, I feel like, and this is kind of going into her big character arc. Um, she feels like she has all of these difficult responsibilities. Um, ever since she was younger, and kind of going back to everything that, you know, Brienne saying like, "Hey, come be my daughter," and him giving her the opportunity to um make that decision. She feels like she can't even make this, or like even have a decision. You know, if they were like, "Basil, if you come with us, we will save this world, but then you'll never be able to go live with your mom." Whereas Basil's like, "I feel like I've never had the chance to be selfish and truly do what I want. Like, I became a cleric and I feel this responsibility to help people. Um, I'm with this party. I feel this responsibility to help them save the world, because then if I just leave them, I'm leaving them in a world that's destined to fail, but I've always wanted to be with my mother. This is something that I think could actually happen. And am I just going to throw that away because I can't bring myself to finally do something that I want?" So I would say, and this is like also a Rachel flaw that I'm trying to work through with Basil, is I do everything for the sake of everybody else. I feel bad for doing things that I want to do for myself. I feel bad for saying no. And so I try to show that in Basil. So I think honestly, she would stay with the party to save the world. And it's not something like, comparatively, she would obviously rather go be with her mother, but she's like, I mean, I can't leave them like this. I want to protect them. I want to leave them in this world that'll help them and be better for them. And if I can help with that, I want to do it. Even if this is the biggest thing that would make me happy, I'll just sacrifice it to make them happy. So she's definitely that kind of person.
Oof, heavy, heavy stuff.
Heavy.
All right, so we are in the appreciation section of roll call.
Oh.
So I'm gonna hit you with some thoughts from your fellow party members. So we're gonna
Oh
go with
no.
some favorite
I'm
Basil
in
moments
trouble.
from across the party. Again
Cool.
from Felicity. My favorite Basil moments would be her taking the name Alvain. I also have been really enjoying her journey with the Raven Queen. Family is such a strong theme with
Mm-hmm.
Basil, as in discovering family and choosing a family that is good for her. Seems like she's had three avenues with the party, Raven Queen, and her birth family, and each one has its
Mm-hmm.
own level of drama. Also loving her and Edith stuff when it happens. Oh, and her trying to find the spirits in the keep that were not there.
Yeah.
Poor Basil.
Yep. That was a good moment.
I'm just gonna reveal this here. Uh,
Okay.
assuming we get back to Stormhold Keep or get out of the Astral Sea at least, Gideon will be joining the prank war next. I have
Oh,
plans.
perfect. I'm excited.
Science.
Science. Let's
Science.
go.
All right, let's jump over to Joe.
Joe.
Oh, Joe had a quick question actually,
Yeah.
and then we'll jump into his thoughts. As someone who has played D&D with you since the beginning, how do you think you have personally changed?
As a player, I'm assuming he's meaning.
He didn't specify, so you may choose to interpret the question as you wish.
I'll go with player just
Okay.
because Joe was my first DM. He and I met in college, and I got really lucky that Nick was friends with their group of friends, and they were all interested in D&D. And that's essentially where I really met Felicity and became friends with her. Um, so I would say from the very beginning, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. Um, I was just going with the flow. Um, and I Joe was so great to help me with everything and understanding it all. And then the second campaign we were in, I definitely felt a lot more confident. And it's really nice to have Joe as a DM because he was very relaxed. And we always, and I think even in this game, this campaign, it's always been a funny thing where Rachel doesn't know the rules. Rachel doesn't know what's going on. Um, After playing for so many years, and this is the second cleric I've played, I still don't know how to play. So he has always been like so gentle with me for that. And everybody pokes fun at me for it, but um growing though, I feel so much more confident in my abilities as a spellcaster. Um, even though clerics can be a difficult class to play, I do feel confident in general playing them. I've gotten a lot better at role playing. Um, I've got a lot better at creating such an in-depth backstory. Um, because I see other players and all of our friends create these backstories, and so I'm so much more willing and able to dive in just as deep. So I'd say I went from someone who was more cautious and hesitant with just the game and player and characters in general to someone who's like, yeah, and what if we make my dad evil and he stabs me in the eye and now I'm blind, And so I would
Yes.
say I've grown as someone who's more willing to go with the flow and create these deep aspects and complex characters.
Right on. Right on. For Joe's thought, for his favorite Basil moment. Loved giving the last name and her response. Also, her getting the ice pick in the eye. That was badass. And the whole ghost bit, Lamau, too funny.
Yes.
Everyone really loved that ghost bit.
I guess so. I mean, it was funny.
Moving on to Kayla.
Kayla.
Um, yeah, and I'm surprised no one else mentioned this. Razor blades in the hair for sure. Such an iconic
Yes.
moment that came out of nowhere, but it's such an
Thank
epitome of
you,
who Basil
Kayla.
is as a person. See, I mean, the razor blades were one thing, but it was your response of like, I didn't realize how ghetto that sounded, or like whatever you said, and we were like, what are you talking
I don't
about? Like, what part of that sounded like a sensible plan from like a normal
sounded
person?
normal.
Yeah, like,
And I was 100% serious too. I was like, she would have razor blades in her hair. That is, you know,
and hey,
she
now,
will continue to have razor blades in her hair this whole campaign.
and
I
now,
can't give up the bit now.
I mean, John had it pay off, and now, it's in the intro as like Basil's like iconic moment of yeah, razor blades. So
And can I just say the intro is so funny because everybody has these really nice like moments where they're talking about some in-depth thing and it's like a super serious moment and then you just hear me go, "Yeah, razor blades."
It opens
So
up with Joe yelling, "Natural 20!" Like,
20. Yeah, and so I it's so funny to me how that's such like an identifier for Basil now.
but I feel like that's the thing about Evrand. You have these like heavy, heavy, heavy moments, and then just absolute batshit insanity on the other hand. And
Mhm.
I feel like we ride the line very well between those two
I
things in the
think we do
campaign.
too. Yeah, she would like take out a razor blade, use it as a line to do her eyeliner to make sure it's
Straight,
perfectly straight.
love it. A little bit more from Kayla. The entire storyline and lead up to confronting her father, that was such a badass and fearless moment. I low key didn't expect
Mm.
Basil to lose a whole ass eyeball and be chill with it, but what a fucking look, lol. But also a really cool physical reminder of how far she has come as a character.
Mm.
I also just love the
Oh.
relationship she has with her mother, Raven Queen. It adds another layer of Basil constantly feeling like she needs to prove herself, prove that she can heal and save people, but also live up to being the daughter of the Raven Queen. It's such a good character beat and motivation because there are so many different directions for it to go in. What happens when more than
Mhm.
just the party finds this information out? Or when does she find out the full name of the Raven Queen? It's going to be spicy. Also, the first time they hugged,
Yeah.
just tears, man.
Mm.
And also, dancing slash sleepover with Enid was so sneaking cute.
Yes. Oh, I love that. We need to do another sleepover.
All right. We're about to deep dive into the kind of the big portion of this episode here, or at least kind of like
All
the
right.
capstone. So before
I
I
took
go in,
swimming lessons.
before I go into this next part, was there anything else about Basil you wanted to bring up or discuss or ask about? Because after this next portion, like there's no following what comes next. So I just want to make
Mm,
sure you're happy with everything that's been brought up before we kind of conclude the episode.
right. What's your favorite Basil moment?
For me, I mean, I would like selfishly, I would probably say the recent her and Gideon bonding because while I feel like they always liked each
Yeah.
other, I feel like they didn't really have like that line of like this is kind of where we stand together, you know? Like they never had
Mhm.
like beef with one another or anything like that. I think they've always liked one another,
Yeah.
but they just never had like that thing that really kind of connected
More
them.
acquaintance like. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad or anything, but I felt like it was just kind of harder for them to kind of like, other than just like they cared about each other, the
Mhm.
relationship wasn't deeper than that until recently. And I feel like with
Right.
those just like two conversations, like their entire dynamic has changed. And I think that that's been
Mhm.
very interesting for those two in particular to
Right.
kind of have that. Um,
Well,
specifically
and it's
like,
interesting because
good.
I was just gonna say it's interesting because I feel like when they're together with the group, Gideon and Basil, I don't know if you've noticed, they don't talk whenever we're in the group. It's like they never directly talk to each other, but then when they're alone, they're just like, "But what if, like, we hugged and cried to go over our traumas?" And I feel like they've gotten so close, but it's almost as if we're like, "Hey, we're best friends when we're alone, but we are coworkers around other people."
I think that like, and I don't think that's like a bad reflection on either of them. I think it's that the
Yeah,
thing that they're bonding and relating over is very hard for them to openly talk about and to discuss. Because I mean, obviously,
right.
there's everything with Basil's mom that Gideon has sworn himself to secrecy over, and then
Mhm.
there's all the Gideon's sense of overthinking and being overly critical of himself that like no one likes to talk about how much
Mhm.
they suck, at least I don't. But like
Right.
so
Same.
I think it's been harder for that to come out in a group setting because they're both like
Mhm.
ashamed is the wrong word, but I think they're very hesitant to bring that kind of stuff up with everyone else around because it's that one thing of
Right.
like I'm 99.9% sure all these people will support me, but what if they
Yep.
don't?
But what if they don't?
And I think there's just that natural fear of even the people you trust most. There's always that just sense of just like, but what if I let these people down? What if I make them upset? Like, what
Mhm.
if they don't want to have anything to do with me after that?
Right.
And I think that I think that's just a fear that we can all understand, even as misplaced
Mhm.
as we know it is, it's just there.
Right.
At least that's how I always took
Yeah.
it personally.
Yeah. I completely agree.
So yeah.
Yeah.
For Basil specifically, I mean, Gideon like losing 18 HP because he got like that black dust in his face in like session 1 was pretty funny. Just I was not expecting that when he
Mhm.
just took like 12 points of poison
Right.
damage for smelling it. That was pretty
Right.
good. Um I mean, there's been so many good moments. I'm just trying to think of stuff that people haven't said already, because obviously all those moments that have been
Yeah.
said have been like really good. Um, I really think the whole relationship with Vasati played out very well, and I think that that's also a compliment to
Mm.
John, because it didn't just feel like a
Yes, it
ah
is.
shucks, Basil, you showed me the error of my ways, my bad. Because like redemption stories can
Yeah.
come across very like, well, this is convenient, or this kind of feels like it just came out of
Right.
nowhere.
Exactly.
And I feel like John was very smart in how he very kind of subtly portrayed Vasati as someone who is more afraid
Mhm.
of her dad rather than like on the bandwagon and like, yeah, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Where clearly, like,
Mhm.
I'm going to do this, but not because I'm all in. It's because I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me or my mom if I say no.
Right.
And I think that,
Exactly.
going from where they met, I mean, in the campaign, which is basically Vasati arresting Basil, to the
Yeah.
last time we saw Vasati was at least like where it was role played out, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but coming back after killing their dad, and they're just both sitting on the steps outside of wherever we teleported from, and it was just the
Like
two of them like
bloody,
talking.
like
Yeah,
hanging out.
yeah, and I mean, it's just like what a journey, and it wasn't like it was over like, I mean, relatively that many episodes. But it still felt like
Yeah.
a very believable journey for both of them to go on to recognize, like, hey, we were
Mhm.
both hurt, and like Basil recognizing like, yeah, I got out, you were still there, that must have sucked because I hated it and you probably hated it too.
Mhm.
And also recognizing that like, because I get a lot of like kind of not an exact parallel, but I get kind of like Gamora and Nebula vibes from those two, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to where like Basil, I think, recognizes that she was lucky enough to get away, whereas Vasati had to stay. And once Basil was gone, there
Right.
was probably a much tighter grip on Vasati's shoulder because Basil left. And so,
100%.
not that like what happened was Basil's fault, but I imagine Basil probably feels a little guilty about what happened and probably knows that there's
Right.
probably some anger that my father had at me that got directed at Vasati, and that's not fair.
Yes. And
So,
it's like kind of like a version of survivor's guilt, I guess you could say. Because at the time, Basil's like, my dad's gonna literally kill me if I don't leave. And then she at the time was like, well, Vasati hates me. They all want me gone. Um, and then I mean, and I applaud John because he helped me create such a complex character with Vasati. And we talked a lot about Basil's family and Vasati, but ultimately, I told him, I said, I trust you. Um, you can take her in a direction that you think helps because I also wanted to have some of that element of surprise. I wanted to have everything feel more genuine. Um, and so I think having him have an idea of what this relationship could be like, um, Vasati being kind of suspicious of each other at first, and then, you know, having Vasati say like, well, I mean, I don't want my little sister because ultimately she's like, well, Basil's my little sister. I don't want anything to happen to her. And having them be able to defeat their father like that, someone who has equally terrorized them for so long, um, I think John did a great job with Rolim and Vasati. Um, And then, like you said, that conversation that they had at the very end of that particular session was so lovely. Like, it reminds me the end of a superhero movie, kind of, where they just like defeated this boss. They're both bloody. Like, Basil's eye is just completely effed up. And they're just sitting there in silence at first. And they're like, good job. And they had that really great moment where, they hugged and all of that. So, I'm really glad John had worked with me on that, and I'm really glad that he wanted to take it as seriously as I did. Um, and so I think it just turned out beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. Little bit off topic, but have you ever seen the movie Warrior?
Warrior? I
Yeah,
don't think
Warrior.
I have.
So it's I don't know how well you know actors and stuff, but it's a Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton film,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
it's a story about these two brothers who basically when they were younger, their dad was super alcoholic, abusive, and so Tom Hardy and the mom they left, and then Joel Edgerton, the younger brother, he stayed behind because like
Mhm.
Tom Hardy was always like the favorite brother. He was like the better athlete. Like people thought he was going to be like an Olympian and
Yeah.
all this stuff, and they basically kind of separate. And the story takes place like I don't know, like 30, 20 to 30 years later. I don't remember how big of like a time jump it
Mhm.
is. And it's about them coming back together, and they're basically both these kind of like they're these fighters like UFC type mixed martial arts type guys. And they
Mhm.
basically both enter into a tournament to win a bunch of money because like the younger brother's going to like lose his house if he doesn't get more money, and then
Mhm.
Tom Hardy went to go join the military, and he had a fellow soldier who like died in battle saving him, so he's trying to get the money for like
Mm.
the widow and like the son of the guy who died.
Right.
And it's about them coming together over this like family trauma that they shared when they were young, and it's a very very beautiful film, and it reminds me a lot of Basil and
Mm.
Vasati, so I'd highly recommend you give it a watch at some point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. No,
Yeah,
I love that idea. Um, Going back really quick to like my thing of the
sure.
superhero movie, I finally thought of I was trying to think of a specific scene, but the first Avengers movie at the very end when Tony Stark was like, "Have you guys ever had shawarma?" And then it
Yeah.
just cuts to all of them sitting at the restaurant like beaten
Yep.
and they're
Just
just
eating.
eating. It reminds me of that moment, kind of them sitting there.
I mean, sometimes you just need a good bite of food.
You
Relatable.
do. Mhm.
Uh, all right. Well, if there's nothing else, we're going to go into the last part if you're ready.
Yeah, I am ready.
All right. This is the Rachel appreciation section of this episode.
Mm, I'm
So
gonna cry.
that is
I hope
very
not.
possible. So if you need a moment, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of keep going.
No, it's okay. I'm a
All right.
master crier. You can tell
Perfect. We're going to start with Kayla.
me.
All
No.
right. I love Rachel as a player because she is such a star at making impactful roleplay moments. Rachel puts her whole soul into those moments, and every time she reaches out to another player or an NPC with an idea, it always makes such a good moment. Rachel is also
Mm,
good at making sure everyone feels involved. Like if a player hasn't contributed to a point yet, she'll make sure to reach out to them in character to ask for their thoughts, making her a great team player. Also, she's
mm.
so fucking funny. Like legitimately
Oh, thank
hilarious.
you.
I think Rachel's one of the funniest people I
Thank
know,
you.
which makes Basil say some crazy ass
Oh,
things sometimes or come up with
so
wild
nice.
plans, which I absolutely love. It's such a wonderful feeling to have another girly in the D&D world. It's another kind of bond, you know? Some jokes and moments can go over the boys' heads.
Mhm.
I don't know what she's talking about. Or not impact the same way, so it's a great feeling to add to the gal squad.
Yeah.
Rachel is so genuine and will be honest with you always.
Oh.
She honestly adds such a ray of
Oh.
sunshine to the group. I tell Joe this all the time. I wish I had met and befriended both Fel and Rachel so much sooner in college and friended up with them instead of the people I did. Lol, those people were
Yeah.
trash. But I'm
Oh,
happy to have Fel and
Kayla.
Rachel closer in my life now. Heart emoji.
Oh, no, I'm in love with Kayla. I love her so much. I would love to have known her in college. I think we would have been such good friends. Um, Kayla, I wish you lived closer. I'd love to hang out with you.
Well,
That's so sweet.
you heard it, Kayla. Hang out, call Rachel more.
Oh, I
uh,
could call her too.
yeah, well, this is your appreciation time. Don't worry about that.
This is my birthday party.
Jumping to Joe real quick. I love her absolute and total commitment to sparking joy and humor. Sorry, to speaking joy and humor during the sessions. Rachel has always been
Mm.
someone who knows when to embrace humor and when to live in drama. She's such a valuable friend and player at the table that I cherish every moment we get to play together. Also, a heart emoji.
Oh no.
Jumping over to Jonathan.
Jonathan. Fuck.
Rachel, it has been an honor. Sorry, it has been a pleasure and honor to be your DM. It's hard to think that we have only known each other for a little over a year when it feels like we have been friends for much longer. I'm
It
so thankful
does.
that when I was putting this game together, you and Nick were suggested to play because what you bring to the table is irreplaceable and invaluable. Basil is such a wonderful character from her charm to her jokes and all of her serious moments. She is such a huge part of this campaign, and that is only because of the person playing her. Thank you so much for being a part of this game. I could not imagine it without you. I can't wait to see what the future holds for this game, but knowing you are a part of it, I know it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, John. I'm so happy you're my DM.
I was going to say, your sentences have rapidly gotten a lot shorter as I kept going.
I know, because it's so. I mean, it's like a good kind of sad. It's like a happy sad.
Oh, no, I completely understand. A sad joy, as it were.
It
All right,
is.
well, I hope you're ready for the hardest one, because it's Felicity now.
Oh, no, I'm already on the ledge.
And there's a lot, so I'm just going to keep talking.
Oh my god, Felicity.
All right. Rachel, you are my very best friend. I truly feel that at every stage in our life, we would have been friends. I don't even know how to express all the love that I have for you, but I will try. I admire so much about you, your humor, your style, the way you carry yourself, how you somehow give no fucks, but also all the fucks. I'm incredibly jealous. We all know what she means.
Yeah, I know. I do.
I'm incredibly jealous of your writing skills, as well as your acting skills and makeup and drawing, and literally I could go on. You are so much fun.
Felicity.
You are so much fun to be around. It's infectious. As a player, I love how you come to the table with so much life. Basil is so dynamic and interesting, and I feel that she could easily steal the show if you wanted to, but you have enough awareness to keep things balanced. You are such a creative person naturally, and you really put that on display with your choices during the game. Also, it's wonderful just to see you have a good time. I truly mean it that we will be friends till we're old and cranky, sitting in our rocking chairs on one of our porches, talking about the same old tea that we have been since 2018. Know that I will always be one of your biggest supporters. Go see the world, go get your master's, finish writing that book, do your Pilates, hike that mountain. Please do it all because you deserve the world. But remember to call me and tell me about it all because I want to know all the things that make you smile, laugh, cry, excited, and literally everything. And like maybe invite
Oh.
me sometimes because my life with you in it is better. But anyway, I love you, Munches, and I'm so happy to get to play Evrand with you. Sorry for the dump, but this is my best friend, y'all. Come on. It's too hard not to rant about how wonderful she is. Yellow heart emoji.
Yellow hearts are our hearts.
Mm.
I love you, Felicity. That made me cry.
Well, at the end of the day, Evrand's a game that we play together.
Mm-hmm.
But the connections and the bonds that come with these kind of games, they're invaluable. And I think that the level of love and respect that comes from, your fellow players and these people who some of them have never even like physically met you, but they just think the world of you,
Yeah.
and it's just
Brian.
hi, that's me. But
You can't look at me now because
I
I'm gonna cry.
that's okay. But I've said it before on roll call, but if life is measured in the value of the people that are surrounding us, then you've done a pretty good job with whatever life handed to you. So be proud of who you are, where you've come from, and where you've gotten to. Because Yeah, there are some people whose lives are a lot better because you're in it, and that you're not allowed to doubt.
Thank you.
All right, Rachel, thank you again for doing this episode of
You're
Roll
gonna
Call with
leave
us.
it on me crying.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
My first thought was to do the hamster dance song. I'm sorry.
I don't even know what that is.
And you go dippity da dee dee do do.
Oh, that one.
I
Okay.
don't know why it first came to my head. I was like, this is what I have to do now. I don't
That's
know.
the note you want to end on. Okay.
I think so.
Dee da dee dee do. Da dee dee do. Dee da dee dee do. It's something like that. I'm sure I got a few notes wrong, but.
Something like that. I listened to it, unfortunately, an embarrassing amount of times.
Well, I mean, I also just did it, so I mean, I listened to it enough times apparently. But anyways, Rachel, we all love you. You're
I
great,
love
and
you.
just thanks for being a part of our lives, even if it is just a game. I think we all know it means a lot more to us than just that.
It does, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rachel, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see
Yes.
you
Thank you
next
for
time.
hosting.
Always happy to do it. These are always a pleasure to do. All right,
They
guys, we
are.
will see you next time. Happy Father's
Yes.
Day. We're going to go. Woo!
Bye.